to him. I think that the little things are going to stick with me. His broad smile, you might even call it a grin. His cheerfulness, even on difficult days in rehab or at the hospital. The way that he would grasp my hand when he left church in both of his hands and would squeeze for just a minute. And when I would say, bless you, or have a good week, he would say, well, bless you too. You could tell just from meeting him one time what a genuine, kind, and gentle person he was, and that he really saw you, that he listened. John had real faith, not the kind that quotes vague platitudes, but a faith that comes from a full life, from enduring hardships, from meeting people who are different from you, from not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. He loved and he served the church wherever he was. My two favorite stories of John's faith are, for one, the letter from his pastor in Kuala Lumpur that he sent to John's mother back in Durham, telling her what a fine son she had and what a leader he had been in the church and how much he would be missed when they moved. And that pastor said that he thought John would be mildly annoyed that he was writing this letter because John was so humble. But the pastor said he was too old to care about that, and so he did it anyway. The other story was from his hospital bed. After a visit, I usually pray, so I asked if I could pray. And John was kind of in and out, and he must not have heard me very well, but he saw that we were gathering around and holding hands and bowing heads. So he thought that we were asking him to pray, which he did, without hesitation. He said a lovely short prayer, and it surprised and delighted me. He did it effortlessly. He did it without any hint of self-consciousness. He just prayed. John loved God, and he loved the church. And John loved other people. Nowhere is it more evident than in the way he loved his wife, Joan, and his 4 daughters and his grandchildren. Again and again, I've heard them say he was the perfect father for 4 daughters. He was loving and fun. He was engaged in their activities. He apparently sat through a lot of tennis. He taught them things, whether they were the kinds of things that people normally taught to girls or not. He didn't care. He just wanted them to be independent. And he loved his Joni and inspired a great love in her too, because after just, 3 weeks of dating, they were engaged. And she was ready to commit to travel the world with him. Just like the verses from Ruth that are written in their wedding Bible that say, where you go, I will go. Where you live, I will live. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. And they were off on a round-the-world adventure. But John didn't just love his friends and family. He served all kinds of people that he knew and that he didn't know. He served his country in the Air Force as an active duty pilot in Korea. He loved Joan so much, as we've heard, that he advocated with her for those who are deaf or have hearing loss. They were instrumental, Bill Gaddis told me, in getting assistive listening devices in place at University Methodist in Chapel Hill, which is a huge church and a big deal, and is important there still to this day. And of course in this church too. John really cared that everyone had an equal chance to hear and to participate in what was going on. And just a few months ago, he was still advocating with me to make handicap parking better. It was never in a forceful way. It was just, he was always holding the needs of other people in front of us, never letting us forget people who needed a little extra help. And John loved creation. He loved whatever animals his daughters dragged in. I had no idea that snakes and donkeys were part of that. But whatever cats or dogs they had at the time, he loved to be outside. He loved to walk or to putter around in the garden, as Joan called it. And he loved this big world that we live in, loved the really interesting places that he got to travel to, loved what he learned from them, and he loved having an international family. Finally, and you might think this is an odd place to end up, but John loved himself, not in a selfish way, don't get me wrong, not in a self-centered way, because that's not who John was. But he was comfortable in his own skin. He was who he was, in a way that many people are not. And I think that that kind of integrity, being the same person no matter where you are, is what enables us to do the work of loving God and other people and all of creation. He wasn't afraid to be a man who baked bread in the morning or taught his girls to use tools, or apparently how to hook up the septic for the RV. He wasn't afraid to advocate for people who others might be more comfortable forgetting. He wasn't afraid to wear his Duke hat the entire long time he was in UNC hospitals. He knew he was lousy at tennis, but he'd sit through match after match anyway. He was simply himself. The love and the kindness that we will remember him for, that was just him, through and through. John had plenty to test that love and kindness: diabetes, dementia, the loss of his beloved Linda to cancer, finally this fight with infection and pain. But he stayed true to himself to the end. He insisted as long as he could that he was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, even when he must have felt tired and sick. He really, really did, as 2 Timothy says, fight the good fight and keep the faith. And now he has finished the race. In the meantime, he's taught us so much about what it means to live a good life and to run a good race, loving God, loving others, loving all of creation, even loving yourself. And as hard as it is to not have him with us anymore, I'm glad that he doesn't have to be strong or in pain. I think, knowing John, that going home to be with God was probably as easy as opening the door and finding that the love and the warmth and the kindness that he's always given to others had suddenly enfolded him completely. I hope he has many new worlds and countries to explore. I hope he can still putter around in a garden. I hope he can still sleep with a cat on his head, give Linda a big hug, maybe even catch a Duke game now and then. And I hope that we can all live lives of love and integrity like John did, lives that make this earth a little bit more heavenly. Thanks be to God.